Could gold confiscation happen again? The question sounds paranoid until you realize it's already happened. On May 1st, 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102, and nearly overnight, the United States government made private gold ownership illegal. Citizens were forced to surrender their gold coins, bullion, and certificates to the Federal Reserve. Those who refused faced up to 10 years in prison, fines of $10,000, or both. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $170,000 today. And here's the unsettling part. It worked. The government confiscated more than 2,600 metric tons of gold. That's billions of dollars in today's money. Most people today have no idea this even happened. They believe property rights are sacred, that the government can't simply walk in and take what you own. History says otherwise. The official justification was protecting the currency system. America was tied to the gold standard then, meaning the Federal Reserve had to keep gold backing 40% of all paper currency in circulation. The Depression had strangled the economy, and Roosevelt's team believed private citizens were hoarding gold, starving the system of liquidity. By confiscating that gold, the government could expand the money supply, boost spending, and theoretically jumpstart growth. It was an elegant excuse for theft dressed up as economic policy. What makes it even worse is how the government profited. Citizens were paid $20.67 per troy ounce. Just months later, after the confiscation was complete, the government revalued gold to $35 per ounce. The government made $14.33 on every single ounce seized. That's not a rounding error. That's deliberate wealth transfer. And here's what's truly chilling. Enforcement wasn't even perfect. Only about 25% of gold coins were actually turned in. Most people hid theirs, but the ones who didn't, they got robbed by their own government with a legal stamp of approval. The case of Frederick Campbell shows how far the government went. Campbell was a New York attorney with over 5,000 troy ounces at Chase National Bank. When he tried withdrawing his gold, Chase refused. Campbell sued. The next day, federal prosecutors indicted him for hoarding. The prosecution failed on technical grounds, but it didn't matter. The government issued new executive orders strengthening enforcement. Congress passed the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, giving legislative permanence to confiscation. Campbell's gold was seized anyway. It wasn't a victory for him. It was a warning to everyone else. The government was willing to hunt down gold, prosecute citizens, and escalate pressure until it got what it wanted. The individual might escape on a technicality, but the system would crush you in the end. And the United States wasn't alone in this. In 1966, Britain banned citizens from owning more than 4 gold coins or any bullion. The ban lasted until 1979, 13 years of confiscation by another name. Australia enacted similar laws in 1959. France, India, the Soviet Union all did it. Multiple developed Western nations with legal systems and democratic traditions all seized gold from their own citizens when they deemed it necessary. The shortest ban lasted 13 years. That's a full childhood lived under gold prohibition. These weren't isolated incidents or temporary wartime measures. These were systematic, sustained campaigns to strip citizens of tangible wealth. Today, many fear this could happen again, and honestly, those fears aren't completely irrational. The conditions aren't identical to 1933, but there are alarming parallels. Government debt across developed nations has exploded to levels that seem unpayable. Add in unfunded liabilities like pensions and healthcare, and the obligations become genuinely staggering. If a severe economic crisis hits, governments might start looking for assets to seize. Gold is valuable, concentrated, and easily identifiable. Why wouldn't a desperate government go after it, especially if they frame it as a national emergency? That's how it worked before. Create the crisis narrative, declare the emergency, issue the executive order, and suddenly confiscation is legal. But here's where modern reality diverges from 1933. Gold no longer backs the dollar. The currency is pure fiat. held up by trust and policy, not physical metal. The Federal Reserve doesn't need to maintain a gold-to-currency ratio anymore. They can print money at will through quantitative easing, interest rate manipulation, and tools that 1933 policymakers couldn't have imagined. This is both good and bad news. The good news is that gold confiscation would be logistically pointless. The bad news is that the government doesn't need your gold, which means they might seize it anyway, not for monetary purposes, but just to raise funds during a crisis. Very few Americans own gold today. Most people have never even held a coin. In 1933, gold ownership was far more common and economically significant. The juice wouldn't be worth the squeeze. Seizing gold from a tiny fraction would generate massive backlash while raising little money. Modern enforcement would be harder anyway. Gold can be hidden or stored outside banking. In 1933, gold was easier to track because much sat in banks or official repositories. Today's gold market is decentralized and global. The real threat isn't confiscation in the old sense. It's taxation and regulation wearing new masks. Some analysts predict a windfall profits tax on gold. In 1980, Congress taxed oil companies up to 70% on windfall profits. The same logic could apply to gold if prices surge. That's not technically confiscation, but achieves similar results. Or government could impose reporting requirements, restrict transactions, or track ownership through financial systems. More insidious is central bank digital currencies. When governments control money completely through digital systems, physical gold becomes irrelevant. You can't hide cbdcs. You can't move them outside the system. They're programmable and controllable. In that world, confiscating gold becomes unnecessary because the government already owns your entire financial life. So could gold confiscation happen again? Technically, yes. Legally, yes, if framed as emergency. Practically, maybe not in the crude 1933 style. But the real threat isn't yesterday's playbook. It's tomorrow's digital cage, so carefully designed you won't realize you're trapped until the door locks. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will crush you all the same. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers.